morning, friends. Welcome to another meeting of the United Lodge of Theosophists. A reading of the Declaration will now take place. The policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of Theosophy without professing attachment to any theosophical organization. It is loyal to the great founders of the Theosophical movement, ancient and modern. It does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of Theosophy and the exemplification and practice of those principles through a true realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable basis for union among Theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching, and therefore has neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis, and it aims to disseminate this idea among Theosophists in the furtherance of unity. It regards as Theosophists all who are engaged in a true service of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization, and it welcomes to its association all those who are in accord with its declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves by studying otherwise to be the better able to help and teach others. The true Theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. Okay? Every Sunday at this hour we have a presentation by one of the students of the lodge, and today's subject is karma. And we'd like to read, the reading comes from the Voice of the Silence. Kill out desire, but if thou killest it, take heed lest from the dead it should again arise. Kill love of life, but if thou slayest Taha, let not this be for thirst of life eternal, but to replace the fleeting by the everlasting. Desire nothing, chafe not at karma, nor at nature's changeless laws, but struggle only with the personal, the transitory, the evanescent, and the perishable. Help nature and work on with her, and nature will regard thee as one of her creators and make obedience. And she will open wide before thee the portals of her secret chambers, lay bare before thy gaze the treasures hidden in the very depths of her pure virgin bosom. Unsullied by the hand of matter, she shows her treasures only to the eye of spirit, the eye which never closes, the eye for which there is no veil in all her kingdoms. Then she will show thee the means and way, the first gate and the second, the third up to the very seventh, and then the goal, beyond which lie, bathed in the sunlight of the spirit, glories untold, unseen by any save the eye of soul. The wheel of the good law moves swiftly on. It grinds by day, night and day. The worthless husk it drives from out the golden grain, the refuge from the flour. The hand of karma guides the wheel. The revolutions mark the beatings of the karmic heart. True knowledge is the flour. False learning is the husk. If thou wouldest eat the bread of wisdom, thy flour thou hast to knead in our meter's clear waters. But if thou needest husk what Myers do, thou canst create but food for the black dog of death, the birds of birth, decay, and sorrow. Thou canst create this day thy chances for thy morrow in the great journey. Causes sown each hour bear each its harvest of effects, for rigid justice rules the world. With mighty sweep of never-erring action, it brings to mortals lives of weal or woe, the karmic progeny of all our former thoughts and deeds. Take then as much as merit has in store for thee, O thou of patient heart. Be of good cheer, and rest content with fate. Such is thy karma, the law of the cycles of birth, the destiny of those who in their pain and sorrow are born along with thee. rejoice and weep from life to life, chained by thy previous actions. Act thou for them today, and they will act for thee tomorrow. Before leaving the podium, I'd like to make a quick announcement. Once again, it's brought to our attention that this book will be ordered by students here in the lodge the last part of this month. And this is somewhat of an abbreviation of the book in case one wants to look at it before we make the order. So this is a new book. And now today's presentation, Karma.
Thank you. This law of karma we've all heard about, and many of us know quite a bit about it, but in order to put it in context, we have to think about the law of nature, which is also a law of karma, and the law of brotherhood, which is the overall law, which starts, well, we don't really know where it starts, because it starts in the highest divine principle there is, and it comes down to us through spirit and matter and so forth. But we do know enough, quite a bit about it, about the law of karma. Again, it's part of the law of brotherhood. Under the law of brotherhood, we learn through analogy and correspondence that nature and man are one in their divine consubstantiality. But each has a dual aspect. The non-manifested, which is the higher law of brotherhood, and the manifested. The forever concealed, non-manifested, which no man comprehends, permeates every species, every being, and every atom. The one and only macrocosmos is forever hidden in absoluteness. The universe in total is itself a microcosmic projection of that one and only macrocosmos. So the study of the manifested is the study of immutable reflections of the one life. Every microcosmos, following its parent, projects itself, and thus becoming a macrocosmos to its progeny. And we need to keep this in mind when we study all aspects of theosophy, including karma. So the manifested universe is called in the secret doctrine the son of necessity. Every microcosmos is a son of necessity. This son is governed by a law with three aspects corresponding to the three in the ever-concealed unity, highest levels. The law of karma, or action, the law of cycles. We had a talk several weeks ago about cycles. Uses. And the law of sacrifice and compassion, which is yajna. Under the law of karma, cosmic and human beings wake up or fall asleep in differing periods of time, or cycles, according to their acquired capacities and powers inherent in them. By the law of yagna, or sacrifice, all beings act as builders, preservers, and regenerators. All of us and all beings come with this power, which we have the opportunity to develop further in our lifetimes. These beings give of their life power to those who are in need of it, and receiving it, they receive it from others, what they themselves require, some willfully, other unconsciously. This threefold function of the one law is not outside of man or the universe. It is within each. With this backdrop, we can understand karma a little better. So karma, the doctrine of hope and responsibility, the ultimate and unerring law, tracing back to the producer its effect. The karma that we create in this lifetime predestines conditions for the future births of all. It is not karma that rewards or punishes. We reward or punish ourselves according to whether we work with or break the laws of nature. Critically important background for a few more comments. I'll put it up here. Cover that up maybe. Nature exists for no other purpose than the soul's experience. Nature reacts to the degree that our thoughts and actions are in harmony with her laws. Mankind's thoughts and actions have brought us to where we are today. Puts a lot of responsibility on us and also a lot of hope. Gives us a lot of hope. We periodically talk about the third eye. There have been several lectures in recent months about that. The third eye is associated with our spiritual powers, our buddhi, our intuition. It was active in the natural process of our descent out of the ethereal world of spirit. As Atlanteans, we misused our spiritual powers for selfish personal gain. The third eye withdrew, became petrified, and its remnant is called the pineal gland back here. The third eye, we are now ascending back out of matter into the spiritual world. We have gone to the bottom of this cycle that we talk about, and we are going back up now, trying to get out of, working our way back out of the matter into the spiritual side. We must regain our spiritual wisdom to function in the coming cycles. As we get more spiritual, we have to understand the spiritual side. The secret doctrine tells us that the third eye is indissolubly connected with karma. So we needed to talk about that a little bit. Associated comments caution sincere theosophists who have gained wisdom by their contact with the theosophical movement, but they often fancy too soon that they are something apart from the mass in their wisdom. The first step in universal brotherhood is the will to reform oneself in devotion to the best interest of others. In other words, we must become enlightened and unselfish, not one or the other. The spiritual wisdom of that third eye must be yoked together with the psychic and intellectual understanding we have developed in our trip through matter. That singular trip is, but we take many lifetimes to get through that trip. For whatever the spiritual wisdom, we are like blind Samsons. For without the spiritual wisdom, we are like blind Samsons who can as well easily tear down as build up. A little bit about that slide. This slide too talks about karma always acting so as to restore harmony and preserve the balance of equilibrium of the universe. Consequences of one's deeds and thoughts react upon himself with the same force with which they were set in motion. No doctrine other than karma and reincarnation explains the problem of good and evil, reconciles man to the terrible and apparent injustice of life. Put that up. So how humanity rises through cycles is very important. It may be through much self-inflicted strife or through more natural processes of effort and trial and learning to cooperate with the laws of life. On pages 643 and 44 of The Secret Doctrine, Volume 1, H.P. Mead notes that karma nemesis is the creator of nations and mortals, but once created, it is they, the mortals, who make of her either a fury or a rewarding angel. Karma nemesis guards the good and watches over mortals in this as in future lives, and it punishes the evildoer, even up to his seventh rebirth, so long as there remains an effect of the mortals having thrown into perturbation even the smallest atoms in the infinite world of harmony. The only decree of karma, which is an eternal and immutable decree, is absolute harmony in the world of matter as it is in the world of spirit. It is not karma that rewards or punishes, but it is we who reward or punish ourselves according to whether we work with, through, and along with nature, abiding by the laws on which that harmony depends, or break them. There is not an accident in our lives, not a misshapen day, or a misfortune that could not be traced back to our own doings in this or in another life. If one breaks the laws of harmony or the laws of life, one must be prepared to fall into the chaos one has oneself produced. The suppression of one single bad cause will suppress a variety of bad effects, so we can do something about this karma that's been produced. But it can suppress a variety of bad effects. And if a brotherhood, or even a number of brotherhoods, may not be able to prevent nations from occasionally cutting each other's throats, still unity in thought and action and philosophical research into the mysteries of being will always prevent some, while trying to comprehend that which has hitherto remained to them a riddle, from creating additional causes in a world already so full of woe and evil. Knowledge of karma gives the conviction that man is himself his own savior and his own destroyer, going back to those three. So encouraging instances really are among us of human kindness that are in working with the laws of nature, like the child raising money to install water wells in Africa, or the businessman starting a company to provide funds for shoes to go to children in Brazil who don't have any. These are examples of the natural processes of effort in response to trials faced by mankind. These instances carry with them what might be thought of as good karma. To the degree that the motive for the instance is not tainted by even a speck of expectation of personal gain. And if we think about that, our actions, it's very, very difficult in many cases to say that this we did because of not, without a taint of personal gain in there. On the other hand, selfish thinking and action results in much self-inflicted strife. In the 30th of Mr. Judge's 31 aphorisms, we'll point to that in a little while, on karma, he states that karma operates to produce cataclysms of nature brought on by the disturbance created through the dynamic power of human thought. The selfish materialist may be the first to deny any association between their thinking and action and ignorance of our spiritual reason for being. The more frequent, the question I guess is, in this student's mind, are more frequent signs of global warming, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, droughts, fires, and floods, not nature's way of warning us about man's pollution of our environment and greed that cause world economic crises? Is nature telling mankind that we must try harder to think and act in ways that benefit all and harm none? So the age of Kali Yuga, or the Dark Age, as we know today, the Iron Age, will give way to the Golden Age that has already done. Some are with us in that Golden Age. So we heard the first speaker in reading from the Voice of the Silence passages about the importance of working with nature. This is obviously why HPB called karma the ultimate law of the universe, the source, the origin, and the fount of all other laws which exist throughout nature. Karma is the unerring law which adjusts effect to cause on the physical, mental, and spiritual planes of being. No cause remains without its due effect, from the greatest cosmic disturbance down to the movement of your hand. Karma is that unseen and unknown law which adjusts wisely and intelligently and equitably each effect to the cause, tracing the effect back to its producer. We do not know, HPB said, what karma exactly is in its essence, but we do know how it works, and we can define and describe its mode of action with accuracy. Karmic cycles, the karma that we create in this life, predestines conditions for the future birth of all. under the law of evolution, which is now carrying us along the ascending arc that we spoke of earlier, back to the spiritual side. These cycles, these wheels within the wheels, do not affect all mankind at one and the same time, and the system of cycles cannot be comprehended as spiritual action preordained by karmic law is separated from their physical course. And what do we do these days? We tend to separate it. The grand cycle runs through the inner cycles of man's progressive evolution from the ethereal down to the purely physical, down to the redemption of man from his coat of skin and matter, after which it continues running its course downward and then upward again. So it is not karma that rewards or punishes, but it is we who reward or punish ourselves according to whether we work with or break the laws of nature. So we're going to mention the law of reincarnation today, but not go into it. The law of reincarnation says that the same spiritual individuality is reborn in a long series of personalities. Reincarnation means that the ego, which we are, will be furnished with a new body, a new brain, and a new memory. At death, we see the causes that were at work during our life. At rebirth, we see the life which awaits us and realize all the causes which have led to it. And then we quickly forget. I'll put this up. So karma does not act in this or that particular way, always, but it always acts so as to restore harmony and preserve the balance of equilibrium in the universe. Throw a rock into the pond, for example. The waves go out and then they come back on where the rock went in. Go back and forth until the water is again smooth. Like that, under karma, the consequences of a person's deeds and thoughts must all react upon himself with the same force with which they were set in motion. The law of karma and its twin doctrine, reincarnation, is the only doctrine that can explain the mysterious problem of good and evil and reconcile man to the terrible and apparent injustice of life. He who unveils through karma and through study and meditation karma's intricate paths and throws light on those dark ways is working for the good of his fellow man. So karma is a power which cannot fail. It has not wrath nor mercy, only absolute equity. Jesus said, "With what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again," in Matthew chapter 6, verse 2. Refusal to forgive every injury and render good for evil is criminal and hurts the refuser. No person can rise above his individual failings without lifting the whole body of which he is an integral part. We believe that the unknown universal deity is represented by karma, a power which leaves every cause to work out its inevitable effect. Every atom is subject to the general law governing the whole body to which it belongs. The aggregate of individual karma becomes that of the nation, and the sum total of national karma is that of the world. No person can rise above his individual failings without lifting the whole body of which he is an integral part. Said before, worth repeating. No one can sin nor suffer the effects of sin alone. So karma is distributive because we are interdependent. There is no such thing as the concept of separateness that has been asserted by man. When every individual has contributed to the general good what he can of money, labor, and of ennobling thought, then and only then will the balance of national karma be struck. It is the development of humanity that the Theosophist has always in view, and he knows that any failure on his part to respond to the highest within him retards not only himself, but all. Part of the power of karma is the mysterious power of meditation. Those who perform special ceremonies and conform to text and doctrine, as the judge says, attain thereby the reward of heaven. They may still they have left over a quantity of that mysterious power of meditation unexpended. When they do return from heaven, their next compensation might be a sojourn in hell. And he said that in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. Worth pondering about. So our circumstances are the direct results of our own deeds and thoughts and lives that are past. Every selfish action, again, sends us backward. Every noble thought and unselfish deed are stepping stones to the higher and more glorious planes of being. So now make reference to the aphorisms on karma. And there's a handout there which we would pass out to those who are here. To those who are joining us by YouTube, go to http://uot.org/aphorisms PDF. And we'll post this. Hopefully you'll be able to see it on your videos at home or wherever you're watching from. So we'll mention a few of those aphorisms. There are 31 of them. We talked about a few already. Number one, he says, there is no karma unless there is a being to make it or feel its effects. Number two, karma is the adjustment of effects flowing from causes, during which the being upon whom and through whom that adjustment is affected experiences pain or pleasure. Number three says karma is an undeviating and unerring tendency in the universe to restore equilibrium and it operates incessantly. Skipping on down to number 5, karma operates on all things and beings from the minutest conceivable atom to Brahma. Number 6, karma is not subject to time. He who knows what is the ultimate division of time is in this universe knows karma. So most of us have a way to go. I'm not slighting any of these 31 that he has. This student thought it would be good to illustrate in a few minutes what is in here to encourage all of us to read them all and ponder on all 31. The karma of this earth is the combination of the acts and thoughts of all beings. Down to 12, karmic causes already set in motion must be allowed to sweep on until exhausted. But this permits no man to refuse to help his fellows and every sentient being. Skipping on down to number 21. Karma is both merciful and just. And there's explanation of what is meant by that. Number 27. Measures taken by an ego may alter the sway of karmic tendency and shorten its influence. Number 28. No man but a sage or true seer can judge another's karma. Birth into poverty or heavy trial may not be for punishment, but for the discipline of the ego and result in strength, fortitude, and sympathy. Number 30, karma operates to produce cataclysms of nature brought on by the disturbance created through the dynamic power of human thought. It's important to think about the thought part of it. That's why we talk about meditation a lot, because we need to learn to control our thoughts. With that, we will open the floor to discussion about any of these other aphorisms or anything that maybe triggered a question during this presentation.
There's something about an atom. Oh, atom to Brahma. What's the karma of an atom? How does that come into play?
The karma of an atom.
Karma operates on all things and beings from the minutest conceivable atom to the atom.
Well, that's that would be in the group karma category. This student understands it to be. We as humans have the power of thought and the power of decisions more so than lives that are not at the human level. So the atom level would be in that category. This student understands. If someone else wants to comment on that, please pass the mic around for the speakers in the audience. Did you want to comment on the atom question? But Tunjai do that, and then she can, then you can take it, Kim.
In the article by HPB, Atoms, God, Atoms, and Monads, there's an explanation that answers the student's questions, where it is stated that an atom is a world in itself,
Yes.
because it incorporates smaller lives into it, and that in its sphere it can cause change. And when you think about it, that our world is made up of atoms, and that they are psycho-spiritual entities, not being physical because no one has ever seen them, then it stands to reason that we're incorporating these minute lives into our being through intake of food, through breathing from the air, and our astral body receives nourishment from the sun because it has all of the colors in it. So, as you said, since our thought carries the highest influence, what we do to these lives then depends on our thoughts. We can uplift them to higher realms, or, as Mr. Judd says, we can push them back into the lower classes, meaning the animal life, or we can spiritualize them and lift them up.
So that carries along with it lots of food for thought in itself, because that tells us one way how we can influence everything around us as well as our own thoughts. Kim, you had
I just wanted to make a comment. This is a good topic. I love this topic, Karma. I just wanted to say our consciousness is like the vehicle in which we express, because every thought that we have, every idea, every desire that we, or conception that we have, is manifested on the outside. Whether it's through us, other people, circumstances, things like that. Which is a good thing, because if we didn't have contrast in life, then we would have very little to compare and to grow and evolve as people or spiritual beings. So karma to me is more of a contrast to life manifestations, where we place ourselves, where we, you plant corn, corn's coming up. Bottom line. You can stunt the growth and create something else, but if you plant it, it's growing. It's going to manifest. And excuse me, through that you see the contrast. You can say, oh my goodness, that was not good. Or, oh wow, that did work. That makes sense. That coincides with what, my thought pattern was, and stuff like that. So yes, I just wanted to make that comment.
okay. Good comment, and follow up here. But the consciousness, you talked about that a bit, and that gets into controlling the thoughts, because that's the first visible to us manifestation, and so that's all I'm saying. Go ahead.
Well, if you plant corn, the conditions have to be there for it to grow with.
Exactly.
You need water. The soil has to be cultivated. You have to give it nutrition. You have to give it water, and it requires sunlight. And without those, it would not grow. It would wither away and die. And the voice of the silence applies the same analogy to the soul, because we are the soul. And if we don't provide the conditions for its growth, it will die, mute, she says. The songster dies in that compressed space because it is not given voice and flight.
Would you say that analogy would go with the pineal gland? It's back here. Science doesn't seem to know much about what it is, and it is there. It's still there. But we have to activate it.
Yeah. There is a thought that runs throughout the literature. I think Mr. Judge expresses it about how Theosophy won't overwhelm the child the mind of a child, but at its deepest part is able to fulfill the desires of the greatest mind, paraphrasing it. And karma seems to be one of those topics that a child can readily grasp.
Exactly.
And speaking of how it's the thought of karma permeates society today. Even on television, they have what's called credit karma, whereas years ago, there was a commercial. Whereas years ago, karma was one of these things that, yeah, I've heard of it, but yeah. But today, I think even a person, everyday person on the street, is beginning to become aware of this word karma. And also, if not that, then just like yesterday on a tour, a lady said, "What goes around comes around," like that. We were referring. So it's there in society on the everyday working person's level. But the twin doctrine, as you mentioned a little bit about reincarnation, that's where it has to be the other side of it. The other twin must come forth, and to make it a whole, because as HBB said, these two doctrines, karma and reincarnation, are those that are capable of sort of like saving the West, from its wherever it's heading,
Yeah, also she says, it says that the key reason why Theosophy was introduced to the Western world was because this idea of karma, the law of karma and reincarnation, was pretty much foreign to the vocabulary of the Westerner. In the Easterner, we have superstition involved, but at least they generally understood karma and reincarnation for many, many centuries.
And just as a follow-up, just like in the Christian Bible that we refer to, the everyday person who is or has some awareness of the Bible, they see karma there with the expression you reap what you sow, stuff like that. But there again, and reincarnation is also there in the Bible. So it's just a matter of extracting those statements and making them clear and understanding to I guess the followers of the Christian world or the Christian doctrine, to show that there too was at one time, the theosophical movement, whereas now Christianity and Theosophy seem to be going different ways.
Yeah, you pointed out some pretty important stuff there too. It seems like we are making our own whatever belief we want, and we're then going to great lengths to justify that belief, rather than taking the fundamental approach, which is the student's view that Theosophy does. And it doesn't, the truth is the ultimate here, and not justifying whatever you do on a day-to-day basis. Comment up front?
Thanks. But we are also cautioned that we have to accept truth where we find it.
Exactly.
And not also become dogmatic ourselves that the philosophy of Theosophy that was brought out in the 19th century is still valid today, but it needs to be incorporated into the living mode. In other words, we have to learn the science of living of it, and that's when it becomes a living power in us. And that's the only difference between the other philosophies in the world and this one, because this is synthetic. Science, religion, and philosophy combined together gives the key to the truth, because we're cautioned that truth in its inner sense cannot be written. It has to be perceived, and that perception has to be achieved by each one internally. So, yes, this directs the way, but to get to it, we have to live it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
The truth, it said, is while we're on these finite bodies, when we're learning the way, is relative. That's the best we can do, is establishing a relative truth. So that grows as we dwell on what's important in imbibing in us, making it part of us, and then helping and teaching others. Is to keep working on that truth. There is no religion higher than truth, is one of the mottos here. So we keep working at it, and we grow as we work at it.
Yeah. I've heard also that karma operates on every plane up to, I say, Brahma, up to the spiritual plane. Does karma affect, where does not karma operate? Meaning that where is there?
Well, up to Brahma covers a lot of stuff, and that's about everything that is conceivable. But you know, even the masters, you know, and we see indications that there are masters with us every day. We may not see them physically on the physical plane, but they are trying to help us. And one shows up every now and then. Well, they show up all the time, but we just don't recognize them. Some do get recognized. So, but they also know. I mean, they are karma-less, if you will, but they know how far they can go to help us. They know that we got to do it ourselves. Mm. They know that they can only provide the guideposts. They can point the way, as HPB said, as the agent of a couple masters. Yeah.
So then another thing. Now, in the Secret Doctrine and other books, it's stated that the recorders of karma, not to go too far out into this abstruse, erudite area, but there is a hierarchy of beings, you know, just like the recording angels, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But yet, at the same time, say, you make your own karma. And, okay, so in doing that making of your own karma, and it's recorded, okay, somewhere on the universal tablets, okay. Mm-hmm. So now, when it's time for that you set in motion to react back to you in cyclic time, now you are I'm trying to work out this thing about the law. You are operating the law because the law is within you.
Absolutely.
So then, but yet at the same time, I'm looking at those who are higher on the scale that's recording and know when the effects are going to come about. Trying to say, it's just like when a parent knows something about its child, then they punish the child because what they did or did not do. That's not the law necessarily. That's the parent punishing the child. So on a higher level, through analogy now, so you have these higher beings who are in accordance with the law, but yet at the same time they can be enforcing the law, because behind this idea of law, which we say is not blind but intelligence, but you still have some kind of agency there to execute the law. So the inference there is that just like how a parent punishes the child, you have beings. It's just like how every being is born under a star, something like that, mm-hmm. and that's your mastership, something like that. So I'm just saying, instead of saying some abstract thing of karma, you know, which is kind of abstract, you do have a category of sort of like your spiritual parent that's punishing you. Other than you can say you know, what is you? Is it your higher nature that's punishing you, or is it some kind of agency in and also out of you? You know, you see what I'm trying to pull out?
I think I kind of understand. I hope it's not very abstract after today, because it goes up to Brahma, so we can only comprehend so much of it. But this is just a little inkling of what's laid out in detail for us about karma already. It gives us the a major guidance as to where to go. And yeah, it's how, yeah, we have all these outside influences. We are in this dark age of Kali Yuga right now. It also gives us a great deal of opportunity that we might not have in the Golden Age to use our discrimination to influence ourselves first. And in bringing ourselves up, we bring everything up around us. Okay, since you have the mic and you want to say something else, and then you pass it up.
Yeah. Well, it's just like a continuum of last previous thought. It's just like how a parent raises a child. A parent suggests, oh, well, you should go swimming. You should learn that lesson, or you should learn this language, or you should learn this skill or this art. So these suggestions that the parent passed down to the child, through analogy again, as above, so below, then how the parent, in that sense, is growing the child on a spiritual level. I would say the prototype of the ego or the beings, it would be growing the souls. These lessons that are thrown in front of the soul through karma, but who's directing that karma? It's like the higher beings are growing souls. It's like the parent is growing the child.
These invisible beings, yes,
yeah.
They're helping.
But at the same time,
these opportunities to grow with, and they're protecting us when we need protection.
But what about free will of the ego itself?
Free will of the ego, yeah, discrimination and all that stuff comes in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, so very good points. All of them, some of them, it's difficult to respond to all of them in a few minutes.
First of all, we have to remember that we're self-conscious, that each human being has that light in himself. It's not an external power.
Exactly.
It's an internal power.
That's where we started, yeah. Good.
That's the first rule to remember, that other people do not make our choices. Each human being does make their own choices because we are self-conscious. And everywhere it is written that no one has the right, including the masters, to meddle in the affairs of another. In other words, they don't have the right to interfere with karma. And karma being the law, it incorporates everything into it. So they're reminding us not to humanize the concept, but to spiritualize it.
Exactly. It's up to us to make that determination of what to do. Like Tom Zane said, he talked about those voluntary visitors. Well, he translated that into what we talked about on the July 4th talk, which provided a fundamental for the Constitution and so forth.
Because it's very important to understand it, because there is no vindictiveness in nature.
There is no.
We are opposed to imbalance or disharmonize the environment. In its opposite reaction, it brings you the opportunity to harmonize it again. It's not a punishment. It's an opportunity to put it right.
Exactly. There's no good or bad karma, is what you're saying.
In Kali Yuga, everything is very fast, so we can achieve a tremendous amount of work in a lifetime, whereas in slower ages, we could not. So we can consider it as an opportunity to do greater things.
Sure.
Influence a larger aspect of life.
Sure.
And that's when we learn to become selfless. We're self-conscious, but we are to become selfless. There again, the lower and the higher in play. The personality is self-oriented. And if we allow it in conjunction with the lower mind, it causes tremendous havoc in our universe. And we're reminded that all of the cultivation in the West is as a result of intellectual activity, not the spiritual activity. Intellectual is the lower mind. The spiritual is the divine higher mind. And it is there. The intuitive and discriminative powers of the pineal gland are within us, and once we activate it, it helps go out like lightning and cut all difficulty asunder. These are not words. It's a living reality.
It's a living reality. So many of us, even who have discovered the Theosophical movement don't see that distinction that you just brought out, that this should be a stepping stone to becoming masters and being able to associate and communicate at that level. And that's not an intellectual process. It's a spiritual process. And another comment? A question?
Yeah, I was thinking those higher beings are us.
Exactly.
And whether we're aware of it consciously or unconsciously, we are creating karma and carrying it out. I mean, everything's so interconnected. If we trip on the podium, I mean, that's karma. If we if we sneeze going down the stairs, that's karma. It's all brought on by us, and there's nothing outside of us. Everything's inside.
You lay it in kind of next week's talk, to the students' understanding. We've had a couple of talks on thou art that, and we'll have a third one on next week on that, which really says that we are already there. We just got to recognize it and live it.
Yeah.
And discrimination and all that stuff, and willpower and all that goes in there. Was there another comment or question? Okay, we'll close it and join us next week at this time for thou art that. Oh, we have a study class. That's right. And it'll start about 12:30 on living the life. Thank you.